Okay, we're live. Okay, just doing some final check. Um, okay, we're live on LinkedIn. Um, yeah, we're live on YouTube and live on Facebook too. Um, all right, so good evening, everybody. I don't know if you can see me and if you can see my guest. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're joining us from. Apologies today that we're hosting an hour with the manager from the woods. I know you can hear the sounds of the crickets, the birds, and everything possible. So yeah, we're doing this stuff non-stop, and we're not going to stop, despite or wherever we might find ourselves. All we need is just to have an internet, have a good camera, have a light, and then definitely we're going to share quality information. We're not only being in the studio to make it all nice every time, but yeah, we believe that from this discussion, you will be able to understand and also learn and connect from us today. And today I have a very wonderful guest in person of Mark Bennett, who has done an amazing stuff in the business space, also for his company, Sentry Enterprise, which you see him wearing his brand today. And he's looking all very nice in his office. And yeah, I hope we are all hyped up for today and hoping to get valuable information. But before we move forward to this, just want to say thank you very much for always staying true with us and for always supporting the brand. And because of you guys, we do this. We do this for ourselves. We do this for everybody. But also because of you guys, we also do this and promote this. And we're not going to stop. And we believe that you too won't continue to stop pushing us and promoting and shouting out and mentioning an hour with the manager wherever you find yourself. So welcome everybody to another episode of an hour with the manager live podcast with your favorite host, Ubong Matthew. And yeah, it's good to be here, and we're going to be here for as long as. Good to have you, Mark Bennett. Hello, Mark. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You were breaking up just a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes. Yeah, good to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, along with the crickets.
Yeah. I will go manage that for today. Yeah. Okay, guys. So today our discussion is very simple and straightforward. I'm using the word simple and straightforward because this is a discussion that affects everybody, whether you're in the professional space, you're in a real life, you're in a real world, you're in a career path, or you're doing anything. But this is a discussion that concerns everybody, every professional, every individual, globally, not limited to a particular location, whether you're in Africa, you're in Europe, or you're in Asia, or you're in anywhere in the world. So today we're talking about how technology is reshaping the lives of professionals in our personal career, in our business, and all of those type of stuff, right? So we want to know how AI is really impacting this, how technology rather, and the different aspects that we can easily see, like the blockchain. You see stuff like we're hearing of Web3, we're hearing of the big tech, right? So everybody's doing a lot of stuff, and the big companies are doing a lot of stuff, right? Either in data mining, like Google, Facebook, and the likes. That's the Meta company, and X and other companies doing amazing stuff in the tech space. But today, our guest here, Mark, is going to share in-depth insights on what we should be aware of, and also he's going to share some case studies from his own brand, Sentry Enterprise, to also make us connect real with what he's trying to share with us and the information he's trying to share with us to make us to give us edge ahead of tomorrow. Because the whole idea of hosting conversations like this with professionals from different space of works and of experiences, because they have gone before us, they've seen what is going on, they're putting these things to practice, and they're coming on board our podcast to also share with us and give us this insight so that we too can learn and connect and cut away spending 10 years trying to look for what to do, or 20 years trying to look for what to do. But our guest here will help us cut that 10 years to 20 years on what we should be expecting in the future and move forward ahead of us. But before we move into that, I know a lot of us are wondering who our guest is today. As usual, we love to know who our guest is and want to know so that we can connect with them personally and also move forward with this discussion today. So please, Mark, please share with us. Let's know about you, what you've been doing for the past couple of years in the business space, and also personally. How has it been amazing for you? And yeah, please talk to us. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on the show, and glad to share my history and what we're doing as a company. The I was thinking about before coming on the show. I've been an entrepreneur probably since I was 15 or 16 years old. I have been involved in technology. I was since I was probably even younger than that. I was fortunate enough to have parents, and my dad was a software engineer, and I had one of the first IBM PC computers that was ever made in my house, and I learned to write software when I was 14 years old. And one of the first sort of companies I had, I was 16 years
Okay.
old, and I was writing software for a building complex to manage their maintenance, and I couldn't believe that they actually paid me to do something I love to do for fun. And I spent several years doing that. I joined the U.S. military and the Air Force, which was an interesting career. It was a place I learned a lot about leadership. I think no matter what country you're in, the military service is an interesting place to be. You're in a job where you can't just quit, and you're forced to work with people that you get along with, and sometimes you don't get along with them. And you get a lot of examples of what good leadership looks like, and also what bad leadership looks like, right? So it was a proving ground for me in terms of my leadership management skills and also technical skills, right?
Yeah.
So the military is where I learned to become a systems engineer. I was a computer engineer, heavily focused on computer electronics and computer systems, and then later software. And I spent 10 years doing that. And then I left that space to join the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is the largest one of the largest financial exchanges in the world, which was a very interesting step for me to go from Department of Defense to financial services, right? And I ended up leading the company's European operations for several years. I spent 13 years there, spent the last 4 years of that in Europe, living in Belfast, Northern Ireland, running all of the Asian and European technology operations with about 250 people. And the interesting thing for me is through all of that, I've always had sort of side hustles and gigs and things like that. I was always interested in the sort of the entrepreneurial world and building things that not only that people wanted to pay for, but things that uh, people enjoyed using, whether or building teams or building companies. I learned after a while that one of the things I was very passionate about was just simply building things that people found useful, and I continue that to this day. And I had the opportunity to
Okay.
leave CME and join a startup company called Blue Store at the time, which was my first introductions into sort of the security and digital identity space. So we were building some very early versions of a security product for storing like electronic healthcare records and those kinds of things, and in something very small like a credit card,
Okay.
right? So we were figuring out how to put something very, very small into a credit card, a computer instead of a credit card. And I learned some
Wow.
valuable lessons along the way. I learned, I thought the electrical engineering and the software would be the difficult part. It turned out to be the easy part because, it's one thing to be able to make a few hundred of a device or something new. I learned the hard way that if you want to make a million of something, right, the manufacturing challenges are very substantial. So I learned a great deal about the manufacturing side of the world as well. And in that space, because of my background in software and engineering and just technology, I've always been looking at how technology can sort of connect people together. And then how can you do that securely? And along with my co-founder and I of Sentry Enterprises, we really kind of stumbled into in the modern world, like how do you establish trust in a digital world where people are interacting with each other and thousands of miles apart, right? And it led us to the understanding that the root of all trust is identity. Without knowing who you're interacting with on the other end of the wire, it's really impossible to establish sort of absolute trust. Um, and you see that sort of manifest in our financial systems and how we transact in money and services and things around the world, right? A lot of the inefficiencies in the current sort of economic systems and transactional systems we have are there because um, there's not a lot of trust in the interactions, right? I receive an email from somebody, right? Is it a phishing scam? Is it real? I receive an invoice from somebody that wants payment. Is that real or is it a phishing scam? So this issue of trust and lack of identity is a very significant problem for the world, and it's impossible to now talk about those kinds of things without bringing AI into it, right? We're not a company that an AI company per se, but artificial intelligence is having both a very positive and sort of a negative impact in terms of digital identity. It's becoming increasingly difficult to sort of authenticate what is authentic in a transaction. There's some interesting but challenging stories of where people have been fooled into wiring. For example, a company in Hong Kong wired $25 million, right, from to a fake bank account after a
Whoa.
video conference call
Whoa.
with who they thought was their CFO. Right, so they thought they were actually having a live conference
Whoa.
call with their actual CFO, right? Who instructed them that they were closing a business deal and needed them to wire some money, right? And this was just a couple of years ago, right? So it tells you how sophisticated AI was already getting, how easy it was to fool somebody into doing something like that. And it's only more sophisticated today. I mean,
Whoa.
everybody's aware of the
Whoa.
deep fakes. So
That's
it
deep.
becomes right. It's very deep and it has very real impacts, obviously monetarily and those kinds of things. But in the creative community, you see lots of discussions going around things like artwork and creative writing, where the AIs can produce artwork and creative writing that's almost indistinguishable, not quite yet, but getting close to being indistinguishable from what humans do, right? So, what does that mean in terms of the
Yeah.
value that people in the creative industry sort of bring to the table? And is it ethically right that the AIs are being trained on their information and their data, right? It's a fascinating sort of philosophical sort of discussion to have about how these tools are sort of impacting us on pretty much a daily basis at this point.
That's an amazing stuff you're sharing here with us. And talking about the advantage and disadvantage of the whole technological era and advancement of AI and the big tech and the rest. Yeah, it's posing a lot of damage. It's posing a lot of stuff for us to look back at. But I think at this point we don't have to be scared anymore, but rather look at how to fit it into our life, fit it into our day-to-day career. Looking at your career level from age 15 or even before then, and even today, I know you've seen lots of stuff, lots of advancements, lots of changes, lots of different technological tools, right? And also you've also made use of them for your own personal and business stuff. And that brings us to one of the topics, or one of the what do you call it, discussion points for today, talking about the global democratization of knowledge, and how this is really impacting. But first, how does that really what will you really explain to us about the global democratization of technology and what is going on in educational space, in different walks of experience? How do you see what that is going to look like moving forward in the world at large?
So the interesting thing to me is when you look at knowledge, right?
Hello,
You
can you
you
hear
can
me?
imagine. Yeah, can you hear me? Hello, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Perfect.
so you can imagine, a kid in a remote village having the same access to
Yes, I
knowledge
can hear you.
as
Perfect.
yeah. So you can. I was going to say you can
Yes, I
imagine a
can.
kid
Go
in a
ahead, please.
remote. You can imagine a kid in a remote village having access to the same knowledge as a student at Harvard or Oxford, right? And And it sounds a little bit like sci-fi, but the sort of global connectivity that we have, and then thanks to tools like AI and other collaboration tools, this is not science fiction anymore. It's a reality. So we're effectively leveling the playing field of knowledge, and making this accessible on a global basis versus being concentrated in specific locations and countries. Um, and giving people the opportunity to do things that they've never been able to do before. When you look at the billions of people around the planet that now have access to the information, this is an untapped, effectively an untapped economic resource in terms of global sort of GDP. So I'm expecting to see an enormous amount of sort of wealth creation around the world, no longer concentrated in specific regions and countries over time. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity for people, particularly in areas that have in the past not had access to sort of the same knowledge and educational tools that others in the world have. I mean, things even like Chat GPT, right, is available now in 100 plus languages. Um, you've got services like Starlink bringing global connectivity to the world, and then access to free education and through things like Khan Academy and Coursera. Uh, so these are tools that are now becoming globally available to anybody in the world with internet access. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties here. Well, folks, if you're still watching, it looks like our host has been abducted by the podcast gremlins. Classic when we're supposed to be talking about technology, but so I think we'll take that as a cue to wrap up for today. So thanks for tuning in, and don't worry, we'll reschedule and bring you the full conversation soon. And we're back. Well, I was saying that it seems that our host has been abducted by gremlins again. And I think we'll take that as a cue to wrap things up today and look to reschedule this conversation so that we everybody can sort of hear what we have to say. So I would say until then, stay curious and keep your Wi-Fi strong. Hope to talk to you again soon.